Welcome to Conflict News 24. Some news stories for you. Firstly, Iran, more sanctions on Iran, viewers. Iran under sanctions for nuclear program, for ongoing crackdown on protesters, and now more sanctions on Iran for the supply of drones to Russia. Secondly, Russia has imposed curfew in 4 newly annexed regions of Ukraine. Why? And Russian officials claim that Ukraine is planning a major offensive on Kherson city. But on the ground, no large-scale mobilization of Ukrainian military towards Kherson city is being seen. And thirdly, viewers, EU, European Union's foreign policy chief, has apologized for his remarks. He spoke about Europe and rest of the world. He drew a comparison between Europe and rest of the world in a speech, I think 2 to 3 days ago. But that speech came under fire, and today he apologized. Firstly, viewers, Iran, more sanctions on Iran. Iran has been under sanctions for years. It was put under sanctions for its nuclear program. Then new sanctions were announced after Iran launched a crackdown, ongoing crackdown against protesters across Iran. Last month, protests erupted in Iran after the death of a 22-year-old girl, Mahsa Amini. Since then, dozens have been killed in the ongoing crackdown, and sanctions were imposed on Iranian individuals, Iranian department heads who are involved in the crackdown. And now Iran is going to be put under sanctions for the supply of drones to Russia. Iranian drones, kamikaze, especially kamikaze Shahed 136 drones, are hurting Ukrainian forces. Russia is using these drones extensively in Ukraine these days. Dozens have been shot down by Ukraine, and visual confirmation has been made that Iranian drones are being used by Russian forces. Ukraine has invited UN investigators to investigate, to analyze the debris of the drones shot down by Ukrainian forces. And we know that Ukraine is threatening to expel all Iranian diplomats from Ukraine. Iran denies. Iran has officially denied that it has supplied any drones to Russia, but it has been visually confirmed that Iranian drones are being used by Russia. And now EU and other countries are due to impose sanctions on Iran. Shahed Aviation company, which manufactures the Shahed kamikaze 136 drones, is going to be put under sanctions by EU. 3 Iranian individuals will also be sanctioned in coming hours. US could impose similar sanctions as well. And behind closed doors, a UN Security Council meeting is going to be held in coming hours about Iran's supply of kamikaze, suicide and combat drones to Russia. Ali Khamenei, Iran's supreme leader, also spoke about Iranian drones today. He said that a few months ago, Western media was saying that Iran did not have any quality drones, and pictures being shared of Iranian drones were fake pictures. And now Western media is claiming that Iranian drones are inflicting losses in Ukraine. So he, in a way, bragged about the quality of Iranian drones. Sanctions are not something new for Iran. Almost all sectors of Iranian economy are under sanctions. Iranian banks, Iranian airline, Iranian oil companies, Iranian defense manufacturing companies, defense equipment manufacturing companies, all sections, all sectors of Iranian economy are under sanctions, but Iran still has managed to survive. Secondly, viewers, Russia has imposed curfew in 4 newly annexed regions of Ukraine. Zaporizhzhia, Kherson, Luhansk and Donetsk were annexed by Russia after last month's referendum, and now curfew has been imposed. Russia says that curfew was already imposed, but now when the 4 regions are part of Russia, officially Russia has imposed curfew. But Putin, in his speech today, said that Ukraine was intensifying attacks on civilians in the 4 regions. That is why regional heads are being given more powers, and civilians are being relocated from the 4 zones, especially from near front lines. Ukrainian media says that Russia is going to conscript youth in the 4 zones. That is why it has imposed curfew. Meanwhile, Russia is claiming that Ukrainian forces are planning a major offensive on Kherson city in Kherson Oblast. Russian media, Russian military officers in some interviews today claim that Ukraine was planning a major offensive on Kherson, and Ukraine could carry out missile strikes on a dam, hydroelectric dam as well on Kherson front. But on the ground, no large-scale mobilization of Ukrainian military towards Kherson city has been seen so far. So why is that Russia is claiming that Ukraine is planning a major offensive on Kherson city? Either Russia wants to set up new defense lines. It wants the people of the 4 regions, especially Kherson, to be relocated. And by showing Ukrainian threat, it is convincing people of Kherson to leave the town towards eastern areas to the right bank of Dnipro River. Or Ukraine is up to something. It is fully prepared to launch an attack on Kherson, and Russians are making preemptive moves by relocating civilians from Kherson. I think Russia is going to set up new defenses in these 4 regions, especially in Kherson, Zaporizhzhia. And obviously, Ukraine will hit back. We have seen that Ukrainian forces retook large territories in Kharkiv, in northern Donetsk. So these counteroffensives will continue, especially before the start of extreme winter. You'll keep on seeing these counteroffensives from Ukraine on Russian positions. And Russian relocation of civilians from these zones indicates that Russia wants to beef up its defenses in Zaporizhzhia, Kherson, Luhansk and Donetsk. Lastly, viewers, EU's foreign policy chief has apologized for his remarks a few days ago. I think 3 to 4 days ago, Josep Borrell, EU's foreign policy chief, spoke about Europe and rest of the world. He drew a comparison between Europe and rest of the world. He had said that Europe was a garden, the rest of the world was a jungle. Though he meant to say that Europe had rule of law, it had economic prosperity, it had political freedom, which was lacking in other parts of the world. But the remarks did not go well across the world, especially in Africa, in Middle East, in Asia as well. And we know that UAE, United Arab Emirates, summoned EU's envoy and protested against Josep Borrell's remarks. Josep Borrell has now apologized for his remarks. He said he did not mean to hurt anyone, and his remarks had no racist, geographical or other connotations. He was only drawing a comparison between the prosperity, the rule of law in Europe and in rest of the world. Take a listen to what he said a few days ago, for which he had to apologize after massive backlash. Even some EU members of parliament also criticized Josep Borrell, that his remarks were indication of colonial reflexes which EU and US still had about rest of the world. Take a listen to what he said. Thank you for watching.
Europe is a garden. We have built a garden. Everything works. It's the best combination of political freedom, economic prosperity, and social cohesion that the humankind has been able to build. The rest of the world, most of the rest of the world, is a jungle. And the jungle could invade the garden. And the gardeners should take care of it, should take care of the garden, but they will not protect the garden by walls, by building walls. A nice small garden surrounded by high walls in order to prevent the jungle coming in is not going to be a solution, because the jungle has a strong growth capacity and the walls will never be high enough in order to protect the garden. The gardeners have to go to the jungle. The Europeans has to be much more engaged with the rest of the world.